Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got another video today in regards to one of the Necron units where we ask the important questions when fielding those said units. Now today we're going to be talking about the Necrons, well, one of the Necrons Cryptech, which is the Plasmancer. We've got 7 questions such as: what's the best battle line unit to lead with the Plasmancer? What's the damage output of a Plasmancer? And should we be adding a Noble or Warden to the same unit? And amongst other questions within this video. Now, as always, we are sponsored by the Magnet Baron for all your magnetization kits and needs, as well as the Baron of Dice for your premium dice and custom dice. Links for both will be down in the description down below. Okay then, 7 questions, Plasmancer, let's get this started. Now, in fact, before we do start, very recently in the rules, no, not the rules, the big balance update thingamajig, the Plasmancer actually went down by 5 points, which I was absolutely gobsmacked by. I know it's only 5 points, but I really believe the Plasmancer's worth a lot more, and we'll kind of work that out and go through that as we go through this video, and you'll see why. But 55 points is an absolute steal for what it's actually capable of. Okay, so first question: how good is the damage output? Now this is just the damage output of the Plasmancer alone, and I'm not talking about the critical hits on the 5+. I know he brings that to the table with his ability. I'm just talking about the Plasmic Lance and he's got another trick, hasn't he? What's the trick he's got? He's got the Living Lightning trick, hasn't he? Just those 2 abilities alone I want to discuss in this question here. So that Plasmic Lance, strength 7 minus 3 AP, 2 damage with a, an okay amount of attacks. You can't expect too much from a character on its own that isn't, meant for swinging and shooting and stuff. So it's okay, it's fair. I would actually say this is a solid weapon. Now it hits on force, which is a little bit of a downside to the weapon, but with a lot of detachments you can increase the the hit roll or the re-rolls and things like that. Canoptic Court you're re-rolling, or ones, Awakened Dynasty, you've got the +1 and so on. There's lots of ways, there's lots of enhancements that you can improve that hit roll to make it a 3+. But as a standard characteristic, it's a 4+, which means half the time you're going to miss. Okay, fair enough. Strength 7 is absolutely perfect for anything that isn't, that big monsters and vehicles. I mean, ideally you're looking at like Space Marines. I know that's the easy go-to, but it's everyone's go-to when you're talking about stats and math hammer. Because strength 7 against virtually any type of infantry you're wounded on 3s, but against Space Marines you're wounded on 3s, yes, still, but it's the minus 3 AP puts them on a 6+ armor save, and then the 2 damage just removes a regular troop. A regular intercessor model just gets removed whenever a shot goes through, as long as they don't make a 6+ armor save, of course. So it's pretty decent in that respect. 1 damage stuff, you're just chipping wounds off, and when there's no AP you might hit, but then you've got to wound, and once you wound with no AP, they just may make a save. But in this situation, a 6+ is quite a difficult save to make. So where were we? On average, you're sort of, in terms of the range attack with the Plasmic Lance, on average, like, it's probably just slightly under, but 1 Space Marine Intercessor will die from those 3 attacks. It's slightly less than 1, but we're going to go with 1. I'm just going to round it up, which is okay. They're what, 16 to 20 points? I can't remember what they are nowadays. I don't play Marines, of course, but they're let's call it 20 points, give or take. I mean, the Plasmancer alone is 55. Then we come on to the Living Lightning ability, that point and you will die kind of ability. 4 dice, something within 18 inches, and on a 4+, or with any of those dice, you score a mortal wound. So no armor save, no invulnerable save, just a feel no pain save potentially, and that is it. And this is done in the shooting phase, but it's an ability, so it doesn't have to go against the unit that you fired at. You don't even have to declare this ability whilst you're firing with the unit, in fact, because it's a complete separate ability, just doing it in your shooting phase. So save it. So there's a 50% chance, or 50% chance of getting a mortal wound with every single one of those dice. You've got 4 dice, so the likelihood is, I mean, you don't need a rocket science degree to know this, but on average you're going to get 2 mortal wounds. Again, that's going to take away an intercessor if you're going up against those regular Space Marines. So within the shooting phase, you're potentially killing 2 intercessors in one phase. Again, that's somewhere between 30 and 40 points. You're nearly recuperating his point cost in a single turn, which I think is really good, and that's why I think 55 points is really cheap. It really is. And we've not even spoke about the melee side of it, which, to be honest, I don't want him in melee. Warriors and Immortals, I prefer them to be at range. Yes, they can work in melee, especially Warriors with their, a lot of attacks. 20-man blob can do a lot of work, especially with Illumina Zaraz and so on. But for the majority of the time, I don't want them within engagement range, so therefore I don't want the Plasmancer in engagement range. But even if he does, it's only 2 attacks, so you're not likely to remove a model. It's sort of maybe a 50-50 there. But yeah, I'm going to take that aside and just say we're going to maybe kill 2 models if they're intercessors. Next one, which battle line unit should we lead? So we've got 2 units, but there's actually 4 options, if that makes sense. With the Necron Warriors, you've got the Gorse Reaper option as well as the Gorse Flayer option, which are quite similar, but we'll go through it in a minute. And then with the Immortals, we've got the Gorse Blaster option, nearly forgot, and we've got the Tesla Carbine option. Now with the Warriors, the weapons are very similar. They're both Gorse, they've both got lethal hits. One's rapid fire 24 inches, the other one is 2 shots per 12 inches with an extra bit of AP, -1 AP. The important thing to note here though with Warriors is you can take 20 rather than 10, or even 5 or whatever. So that means there's potentially 40 shots there, whether you're in rapid fire range or whether you're within 12-inch range with the Reaper. Now, a third of the dice, and I said that right, a third of the dice are going to be critical hit rolls because of the other ability that the Plasmancer has, which I'm going to have to remind myself of the name. It is, drumroll, where is it? Harbinger of Destruction. There, I did know that. I've just, when you press record, you kind of tend to forget about things. Yeah, so the Harbinger of Destruction ability means you get critical hits on a 5+ rather than a 6+. So those lethal hits, which the Gorse weapons have, that normally apply to critical hit rolls of a 6, go to a 5. So that's a third of your dice rolls. If you've got 40 dice, a third of them is approximately 13. It's 13.333, but we'll call it 13. Then you've got a chance of actually getting a 4, just a random roll of a 4. So that's going to be some more hits to add to the pool. And then the rest of them could be, well, there'll be misses. But don't forget, again, there's a lot of ways to increase your hit roll to a 3+ or re-rolls of everything. So it can be improved by whatever detachment you're in. But a third of the dice being critical is where it's at there. That's a lot of dice to play with, and it's completely ignoring your opponent's toughness. They could be toughness 3, it could be toughness 13. It doesn't matter if it's a lethal hit. You're just forcing your opponent to roll dice to make their armor saves, which is quite good. Now, as for the Immortals, these are kind of a little bit different. I mean, one of the weapons is Gorse again, so it's similar-ish. But Immortals have a natural ability to be able to reroll hit rolls, no, to be able to reroll wound rolls of a 1, nearly got it wrong there, or reroll all the wound rolls if enemy units are on objectives. Now that doesn't quite go hand in hand with lethal hits with their Gorse blasters, because of course the more lethal hits you get, the less you're going to have to actually roll to wound, so therefore you're not going to reroll the wound roll. But there's nothing wrong with having lethal hits and then reroll wounds. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't quite marry together. It's a bit like the Scorbit Destroyers and the Scorbit Lord with lethal hits and devastating wounds. It doesn't quite go together. But it's okay. These are actually strength 5, not strength 4 like the Warriors have, and you still get your 2 shots, and you hit on 3s naturally rather than 4s. So hitting easier, wounding easier, it's a nice bonus, but lethal does bypass both of those perks really. Now the Tesla Carbines, however, massively benefit from all the perks we've just mentioned. More hits in the hit pool, but I mean you're hitting on 3s now, it's going to be more hits. Critical hits on a 5+, sustained hits 2. So a third of the dice are going to create 2 more per dice. That's a lot of dice, that's really a lot of dice. I mean, Immortals are only in groups of 10 as a maximum, so you've not got as many as the Warriors have, of course. But a third of the dice are going to be a 5 and a 6. Another third of the dice are going to be a roll of a 3 or a 4, which is just a regular hit, which you're then going to add into that pool as well. And then, of course, you're going to have a third of the dice that miss, which you potentially can re-roll from detachment rolls and stuff. Then we're re-rolling all the win rolls. So I think my preferred option out of all the 4 options here, well, it's the Tesla Carbines. I'm a Tesla guy anyway. I've always been a Tesla guy. I mainly play demons as my regular opponent, so the AP doesn't matter too much. But even without playing demons, I think I still prefer Tesla, just the extra amount of shots. I know you lose AP, but I just think they're better. It's just better, especially with the sustain hits too and the Plasmancer. Don't forget as well, Tesla gives you Assault. That's another real good perk that I haven't mentioned yet. Having Assault means you're advancing and still firing, which is really good when you've got a lot of OC in the unit. Now, what's the best detachment for a Plasmancer? Now, like the Technomancer that we covered a few weeks ago, the Plasmancer works in nearly all of the detachments, nearly all of them. I'm going to highlight a few decent combos, then I'll get into my personal pick. What have we got here? We've got the Hypercrypt Legion. It's a decent option. It's got some goodies in there, such as the Horizon Tyrant enhancement. So as soon as you enter the battlefield, no, in fact, you just naturally reroll 1s, but if you enter the battlefield through hyperphasing or strategic reserves or whatever you're doing, you get to reroll all the hit rolls. Now that's really good, because even if you get a hit roll of a 3 or a 4, just roll it again. You may as well go for the lethal hits or the sustained hits. Just get the critical hits on a 5+. It's going to give you more to play with, especially the lethal hit side of it. You've got another enhancement in the same detachment, which is the Austrioclave Fulcrum, to give the units deep strike. Nice, so you can deep strike in. Maybe you're going to use Cosmic Precision, which is a stratagem, so you can get really in there. Maybe it's on an objective, shoot all your payload, and then you're in a comfortable position potentially. Sometimes you put yourself into danger, so you've got to be a bit careful, but that is an option there. Another one is the Cryptic Core, because it's of course got the Cryptic keyword, and he passes that keyword to his unit, so therefore the Immortals or Warriors will now be Cryptic. So they're going to reroll 1s to hit naturally, and they get to reroll all the hit rolls within the power matrix, which they likely will be in because of their OC values. They likely will have a bit of power matrix unlocked there. Now you're going to again fish for those 5+ rolls, so you reroll everything where you can. Fish for the 5+, especially with the lethal hits with the Ghost weapons. Now there's an optional enhancement with the, I can't remember the name of it, but it gives you infiltrators. Can be useful to get a 20-man warrior brick in the centre of the battlefield nice and early, helps the power matrix nice and early, and gets you some shots off within range nice and early as well. Also there's Solar Pulse in there, which ignores cover, which you don't want to be giving, you know, the weaker 5+ armor save units an extra bit of save from cover, or you don't want to lose your extra -1 AP if you're using the Ghost Reapers and so on. But I think the pick of the bunch for me is the Awakened Dynasty. It's solid because you get the +1 to hit naturally because you've got the Plasmancer in the unit. So Immortals now hit on 2s, Warriors now hit on 3s. But you're going to be potentially rolling for those 5+s anyway. You've got the Revive stratagem with the Eternal Revenant, so if the Plasmancer does get pipped off with sniper attacks, precision shots, he can get back up. You can give them the Veil of Darkness enhancement to be able to deep strike, kind of like hyperphasing in a way. You've got the Protocol of Sudden Storm to give them Assault, obviously not usable with Tesla because you've already got Assault, but if you've got the other weapons, the other 3 options, it now gives you Assault. You've got Conquering Tyrant to reroll all your hit rolls. Nice. Again, reroll the 3s and 4s. You may as well go for the 5s. Fish for them. Itch your nose again. Hay fever season. So yeah, I think that is the detachment I think is the best. But like I said at the start of this question, he works in most detachments. Probably less so in the Annihilation Legion, and maybe not so much the Star Shatter Arsenal because he's not a vehicle or mounted unit. And the Obeisance Phalanx, you can apply him, but you will need a Noble within the same unit, which we're going to talk about that in a bit anyway. Oh, my nose is gone. What's the best unit to buff for a Plasmancer? Now, there are loads of buffs. I mean, in the Technomancer video we did a few weeks ago, we went through quite a lot of buffs with Reanimators, Spiders, the Siren King, but I wanted to mention in this video a specific bit of synergy with Illumina Zaraz. Now, he's got a couple of really cool abilities that work on battle line units. Now, Plasmancers are not battle line, but they're going to go within the battle line unit, so therefore it's a battle line unit. So you've got the first ability where you give Illumina, well, it's called the Illumina. You get a 3-inch, within 3 inches, you give Illumina Zarez Lone Up, which is very key. You need him with Lone Up, he's going to get picked off otherwise. But the main ability here is the Mechanical Augmentation Aura. So for battle line units within 3 inches, which can actually expand for every model it kills. And your weapons get the AP improved by 1, and if you're being targeted, the AP gets reduced by 1, which is really useful for your battle line units. So I wanted to mention that because I think that's a real key bit of synergy. I mean, the Immortals with the Gauss Blasters now go to -2 AP. Even the Tesla option now has AP, -1 AP. The Gauss Flayers go to -1 AP. Gauss Reapers go to -2 AP. And of course, any incoming stuff, you reduce an AP as well. And that's at range and in melee. So very useful to have him, and he's a bit of a beat stick as well. Works very good in and around battle line units. Should we add a Noble or Warden? Or, well, it should say Noble, Warden, or none. But I've done it now. We'll leave that question as it is. Now, when you've got the Tesla Carbine option with Immortals and the Plasmancer attached to that unit, I think it's worth considering an Overlord with the Translocation Shroud for that auto-advancing of 6 inches, because you've got Assault with Tesla. And you can do it through models and terrain and so on. I mean, I don't think that rule is actually that relevant nowadays, because it's mainly ruins and their infantry. Going through enemy models, I suppose, is sometimes decent. I suppose that's the only one that works nowadays, yeah. But I would only do this, though, with a 10-man unit. If you're taking a 5-man unit, I probably wouldn't even add the Plasmancer, to be honest, at that point. A 5-man unit, you've gone cheap and cheerful. You don't need to be adding any leaders. But if you've gone with the 10-man, I'd definitely take a Plasmancer, and I'd consider taking a Noble or Warden. Well, in this case, the Noble. Now, a Royal Warden is more beneficial for a unit of 20 Necron Warriors. Their footprint is quite large. 21 with the Plasmancer, and then 22 with the Royal Warden. So they're likely to, well, they're susceptible to being tagged in engagement range, because your opponent knows, A, I can get hold of them because they're quite a large footprint, but B, once they do get hold of them, they can't fire their 20 Gauss Reapers or Gauss Flayers. They can't fire into engagement, they can't fire out of engagement, they're just infantry models. So it literally removes a lot of firepower from our Necron army. So that's what they do, they tag them with whatever they've got, whether it's a melee unit, whether it's something crap, Rippers, they just tag them. However, when you've got a Royal Warden in the unit, you're able to fall back and still shoot, or fall back and charge, and shoot, I suppose. So I think when you take a 20-man warrior brick, I think you need a Royal Warden. I know it's beneficial to have a Resurrection Orb in the unit, and maybe the Overlord with a free strat use. It's -1 to the CP strat use nowadays. But I think firing is key. So the Royal Warden I would select with the Plasmancer with 20 warriors if you were going in that route. Now, other nobles such as Imatech are sometimes a valid pick, depending on if you've got nowhere for Imatech to go. If you really wanted Imatech within your list, and you don't really have anywhere for him to go in terms of a bodyguard unit, you could run him solo, stick him in a ruin and just forget about him. But if your opponent goes for him, he's probably dead, he's got no bodyguards. If you've got room for him in a 20-man warrior blob, you may as well stick him there, right? Unless you've got another Overlord or Royal Warden and so on. With this space, you put him in. Now, I tend to stick him with like 5-man Lich Guard units, but a lot of players in the comments have told me that's quite a lot to spend just to bodyguard Imatech, and they're probably right. I just find that he dies quite quick. Again, I go up against Chaos Demons quite a lot, and they just deep strike in anywhere they virtually want and charge whatever they want. It's up to them. So if you've not streamed well enough, and to be honest, against demons, it's impossible to stream well enough because they can literally come in anywhere. And if Imatech's on his own, he's going to get caught. So I like to have something just to prevent the smaller, little screamers and little nurglings or whatever, just to getting hold of him. So with Lich Guard, they can at least block those attacks going towards him, keeps my CP farm up and running, and they can actually fight back a fair amount too. So yeah, that's the Nobles and the Warden. I kind of need to go back a bit with those Immortals, because I spoke about the Tesla side of it, but I didn't really talk about the Gauss side of it. I probably wouldn't take the Translocation Shroud Overlord with the Gauss side, because they've not got Assault. The Standard Overlord, it's not really worth adding whatever amount of points he is nowadays. What are they, 85? I'm guessing that now. 85 just for the Resorb. I mean, you can buy another 5 for 75, so I don't think it's worth it when you, especially if you've already got a Plasmancer. So it's either 20 Warriors, I would add Royal Warden, and 10 Immortals, I would add the Translocation Shrouded Overlord. That's where I'd go with. Okay, next, should we use transports? Now we've got one dedicated transport, arguably 2, arguably 3 actually, with the monolith. I know it's not a transport, but in a way it kind of is. It teleports stuff, but no, it's not a transport. Let's just cut dry. It's not a transport, but the Ghost Arc is. Now, all of these options are actually really useful. All 3, if we're talking about the monolith as well, really useful in the Hypercrypt Legion. Hyper phasing off, hyper phasing on. I mean, the Ghost Arc is. I was nearly going to say it was good, but it's not. I'd be completely lying to you. It only fits 10 warriors and then the characters on top, and I don't ever take 10. There is probably some sort of play where you stick 10 in a Ghost Arc and Hypercrypt and all that stuff. I used to do it. I don't know if it's still a valid competitive option anymore. I don't think it is. But having 10, I need 20. If I am taking warriors, and it's quite rare that I do, I need at least 20. I can't have 10. This doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. Now the Night Scythe isn't something I tend to use. However, you can get to your spot turn 1. Hop out the aircraft. Shoot what you want to shoot. Plasmancer's there. Critical hits on a 5+. Do your work. If it's Immortals, reroll your win rolls and so on. You know the coup. We've already gone through that. And then at the end of I think it's the fight phase, you can hop back into the aircraft because it's the ability that the Night Scythe has. You come in turn 1 and you can get to hop back in. Where is that ability? Translocation Beams, there it is. So Quantum Invader is when you can come in first turn. Translocation Beams is at the end of the fight phase. If you're not within engagement range, which you shouldn't be unless you've charged, which you can't because you popped out of a flyer. So therefore you just pop back in as long as you're within 6, which you will be because you've disembarked. So you basically get back in the flyer, and now you're protected by Toughness 9 instead of your Toughness 4 warrior bodies or immortal bodies, Toughness 5. You're now protected with Toughness 9, 12 wounds, 3 up save. And not only that, you've got a slight bit of protection against your opponent's charging units, because in their turn, only units that have got fly can actually charge aircrafts. So yes, a Demon Prince with wings is going to charge it, but a load of Orc boys aren't able to charge it, and they were maybe about to annihilate your Immortals, but now they can't. So there's a lot of benefits to having a Night Scythe. There is a lot of play, especially in the Hypercrypt Legion again, because at the end of your opponent's turn, if it has survived, of course, you can pull it off and then deep strike it back on and kind of do the same again and keep rinsing, repeating that synergy, I suppose. But should we put them in transports? For me, it's a no. And I'm kind of thinking more about the OC. They've got 2 OC per model in terms of Immortals and Warriors, which relates to the Plasmancer because it's leading that unit, of course. There's a lot of OC that I want on objectives. If you're within the Arc or you're within the Night Scythe, you're not using your OC. You're not using your OC. So that's kind of why the Ghost Arc really sucks, because you can only stick Warriors in there. And the Night Scythe, you've got other options that you could put in there, but they're not really that shooty. Like other things are more melee based, so it doesn't quite work because you can't charge out unless you stay stationary. So yeah, that's why I tend to not use them. And then we get on to the last one. Should we take Cryptothrols? Cryptothrols, the Forgotten Bucket Bots, 40 points for 2. Go alongside a Cryptek if you chose to. They've got a couple of cool abilities. Feel No Pain 4+ for the Cryptek unit, for the Cryptek model, so the Plasmancer. So against precision attacks, it's 4+ Feel No Pain. Helpful. And the other one is the Systematic Vigor Orb, and they can fight on death on 2+, whatever. I'm not a massive fan of them. However, there's been changes to the card deck very recently. In fact, it was this week. 2025. Is it called 2025, 2026? Mine's still in the post, so I haven't got it yet. Whatever the name of this card deck is, it's not Prior Nexus anymore. And there's been a few changes to it. one of which is the Color Horde secondary. It used to work on, is it 20 plus starting strength or something like that? I can't remember now, it's been a while. Now it's come down to 13. Now a lot of people tend to, discard the card, but can't do it because there's there's nothing that's got 20, but 13 is doable for a lot. If you've got 10 Immortals and a Plasmancer and 2 Cryptothrols, that makes 13. All of a sudden, Color Horde is doable for your opponent, and sometimes that means that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. The reason why it's a good thing is if that unit is right at the back and your opponent is going to really struggle to get to them, they can't just discard it for free. Normally you just go, I can't do it, discard, get a new card. But it's now doable, so therefore you can't just discard it for free. They've got to spend a CP to discard it at the start of the turn with the new order strat, or at the end of the turn when they gain a CP, whatever, but they've had their turn by then. It's a bad thing though at the same time because... But why is it a bad thing? I said it was a good and a bad thing. I think it's more good than bad for us. I suppose if they kill that unit, then they just score. It's another scoreable secondary, I suppose. But before, they were just discarding and getting a new card. So maybe it isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. I didn't think that one through well enough. I think it's more good for us, only if you're sort of defending those kind of units. If you've got them up the front, and you've done a Veil of Darkness, and you've popped in, shot something, and there you are, waiting to lamb to the slaughter, and then they pull that card, then yeah, bad luck for you, good luck for them, I suppose. So that is the 7 important questions when you're taking a Plasmancer. Let me know if you've got any others down below. I'll try and answer them. And yeah, make sure you are subscribing on your exits. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.